This game's boring.
Why are there games with such interesting concepts yet sloppy executions? I don't get it. Obviously they had to play the game before they released it, right? The Last Tinker, City of Colors was developed by Mimimi Productions and was made in the Unity engine. It was published by Unity with Loot Interactive handling the PS4 port. They were working on an Xbox One version but canceled it due to the low sales of the PS4 version. It got lukewarm reception overall. I bought this on a Steam sale for only a few dollars earlier this year on a whim. It's normally $20 and seems to go on sale quite often for under $5. Graphically, it's on par with 7th gen graphics. The models could use some smoothing around the edges of the mouth and eyelids, but the game is very colorful for obvious reasons, but can also be an assault on the eyes. While games like Mario and Sonic are brightly colored, there's a balance so that you aren't bleeding from the eyes. The animation is awful. It looks like it was motion captured and the guy in the suit was extremely uncomfortable wearing it and possibly drunk. Who moves or punches like that? It doesn't look natural and it's painful to look at. What the game calls sprinting feels extremely slow, but when you attack with the character, whose name I didn't bother to remember, all of a sudden he's Sonic the Hedgehog and moves really fast. The music is pretty good and fits the whole theme, but I can't get into it. In fact, I hardly paid any attention to it because it's not my flavor of music. The game is a platform game and they advertised that they were inspired by Banjo-Kazooie and Jak and Daxter. However, this game is nothing like those. It's more like a kid-friendly version of Batman Arkham Asylum and Assassin's Creed. There's no jumping at all in a platform game. Instead, they opted for an auto jump when you're sprinting and jumping. And jumping isn't the right word for this because you're not really jumping from platform to platform. The better terminology is that you're traversing from point to point in a very Assassin's Creed-like manner. You have to sprint towards climbable surfaces and you'll automatically grab and climb them. The combat is like Batman Arkham Asylum, where it has that flowing from enemy to enemy combat. Then there's the color powers. Red allows you to attack the bleakies, the enemies in the game that look like giant spooge monsters, and green will make them run away so you can have them run off cliffs or into thorn bushes. There is a blue color power, but I'll explain why I didn't get it in a bit. And you can either punch or throw the color powers. It's extremely disappointing that it's not what they're advertising it to be. I was expecting a platform game like that of the PlayStation Trio, where I could go anywhere I wanted in the levels, but unfortunately there's nothing to actually explore. The game world is rather linear and there's only one certain way to go, and the only reminiscent of the platform collectathon type of gameplay is finding golden brushes that are hidden in the levels. But they're not required for progression like how Banjo-Kazooie needed the jiggies to advance through the stages. You're not given optional quests. Everything is mandatory. Even quests that would be considered optional are roadblocks to pad out game length. They aren't hard nor are they long, but are just limp and flaccid. The game also heavily relies on this yellow mushroom mechanic. You need to lead it around to make it do things, or shrink it so it can do things. It'll stomp or blow up when exposed to red. Green will allow you to grab onto it and make it run through stuff, or you can pick it up, let it go, and it'll run into stuff and blow up. The story is about prejudice and reuniting a city that's been divided after the bleak is unleashed in the city. It's pretty much the people all have a common enemy, so they start working together to save their world while you, the Last Tinker, fight against the bleak. It's a story that's painfully colored by numbers that doesn't interest me at all. It's something we've seen before, which is sad. The game has a pretty original concept, but seems like they just copied a lot of the tropes that we've seen before when it comes to the story. And they copied gameplay elements from more popular AAA games instead of sticking to what was probably their original idea. Finally, controlling the actual game isn't the most enjoyable time. On grind rails, I've had the game not respond at all when I needed to jump from rail to rail. The camera cannot be controlled when on the rail either, so it makes judging the distance between obstacles difficult. When compared to the Ratchet & Clank games where this mechanic is obviously taken from, while you cannot control the camera in that series when on rails, the camera does adjust itself to give you the best angle to avoid objects or to jump to other rails. The game doesn't seem to be that well optimized either. I've had considerable frame rate drops on a constant basis, and this game isn't even that graphically intensive. The game says that it has full controller support, but not really. The first time I loaded the game up, it worked with my controller just fine, except when I needed to summon tap to lead the way. I had to hit right on the directional pad instead of up like the game told me to. The second and last time I loaded the game up, it freaked out. I couldn't access menus at all, and the color powers overlapped with other abilities, making me use the power when I wanted to do something else. I had to switch to the keyboard controls because the game decided that it didn't like my controller anymore. They worked a little bit better, but there's several functions tied to Shift, Control, and Alt, and that makes it hard if you have large hands with long fingers like I do. So there were times where I needed to throw color at something but would accidentally whistle for the giant mushroom thing, and vice versa. If you have baby hands, then it might be easier. I didn't bother to beat this game. I got about 3/4 of the way through, but I couldn't keep going. It's a dangerously boring slog trying to be something that it's clearly not. So that's why I didn't get the blue color power, and I don't care what it does because let me guess what happens. You go into the blue district, solve some puzzles, get into the blue dome, talk to the blue color spirit, get the blue color power, go back to the marketplace, talk to a guy, use the portal, go to the final area, fight the bad guy, save the world, game over. And while yes, Pokemon Sun and Moon came out this past weekend, it had nothing to do with my playtime on the last Tinker, because I was way ahead of schedule and I played this game the week before. And if you did want to play this game to completion, it's about 4 to 5 hours. Look, I'll play a boring or bad game to the end if the story keeps me interested enough to see it until the end. But when the gameplay isn't fun and it copies mechanics from games that have done its idea better, and the story is a boring retread of everything else, there's no point in playing it. It's not entertaining. And yes, the game actually says that it takes its inspiration from Zelda, Jak and Daxter, and Banjo-Kazooie on its Steam store page. So if you're looking for that experience, just play those games.
There's times where I finish a review and I end it so eloquently that I should put a signature on it. If you want to play this game, get it at a steep discount, because otherwise you're going to be paying for a game whose subtitle should have been City of Narcolepsy.